My husband, 31 years old, told me, 30 years old, in an argument today, that he wishes my father would die in a car accident. Then a few minutes later, said he wishes he would have a heart attack and die. The backstory is that my husband is sometimes a lazy parent. He doesn't always watch our kids when we are at my parents' house, and he definitely doesn't help with dishes or cleaning when we are there. Yesterday, Christmas Day, we were at my parents' house from 2 p.m. until this morning. We slept over, as tradition. My husband watched our 2 children while I helped cook. During that time, one of our kids, under 2 years old, found a permanent marker and drew on the walls. I asked him if he was watching our kids when it happened, and he lost it. We spent Christmas evening upset with each other, but having to hold it in until we could talk about it. This morning, he slept in until 10 a.m. I was up at 7:30 a.m. with our kids and was packing up toys and making breakfast for everyone. When I was walking to my car with a box of gifts, my dad pulled me aside and said, "Sweetie, why are you doing this alone? Where's your husband?" I covered for my husband and said, "Oh, he is showering and getting ready. He was really sleeping." My dad was just being a caring dad. He is always kind to my husband and has never been mean towards him. I went inside and asked my husband to wake up and help me with the kids and packing up. He did it. He didn't complain. He just got up and he did help for an hour until we left. However, once we got home, the argument about the marker on the wall came up. I mentioned that I need my husband to be more present and helpful. I want my spouse to be someone who is always willing to help with dishes or cleaning or just playing with the kids, to allow me to do other things to help my parents when they are hosting. He lost it again, cursing at me that I'm judging him. And so I let it slip that my dad was worried about the load I was carrying, physical load of stuff, but also the mental load and the parenting load. And he said, "What the frick? Who the hell does he think he is? I'm not going over there again. I hope he dies in a car accident." I was silent. Then he said, "I hope he has a heart attack and dies," and he stormed off. I sat in silence for an hour, then found him downstairs on his phone. I told him, "I don't think I can get past what he said to me." He said, "What did I say?" I said the stuff about my dad, and he looked back at his phone. I went upstairs and I'm contemplating what to do. I'm so upset. I never wanted my kids to have separate homes, and I want to do whatever I can to avoid that. I love my husband. I just can't believe what he said. I feel like a different side of him was shown. How can I ever move past this? Would this be a reason you left someone? Update. Thank you everyone for making me feel like I'm not crazy for feeling disgustingly frustrated and angry with my husband. We did not speak yesterday. He helped with the kids and cleaned the house while I kept my distance. I believe he was trying to save face. I only shared part of the craziness that happened yesterday. There were threats of financial abuse. "I'm going to take our savings out now and buy XYZ if you're just going to leave me anyways." And lots of hurtful comments about me being a selfish jerk for living close to my parents. It was all just horrible. I'm so thankful that my eyes are open. I've walked on eggshells for 7 years to keep the peace. I haven't shared what happened with my parents, but I did ask them to keep my children tonight. We are talking this evening. I'm done. I can't continue to be treated so poorly, and everyone who said it's not fair to my kids to be around him, it's not. They deserve better. Thank you. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How would your life be any different if your husband wasn't there? It seems like you already take care of all your children's needs, and possibly the bulk of everyday house care activities. He also can't stand when you tell him he's wrong. He's also gaslighting you, and obviously not caring for your kids when he said he would. What would you even get from keeping him around your kids? They'll only learn that it's okay to have a partner as checked out and messed up as their dad. Comment 2. You already said you can't move past it. I agree, and you shouldn't, because he's not willing to be better. Why live the rest of your life like this with somebody who doesn't appreciate you and won't take responsibility for his actions? You may not want kids to have separate homes, but do you want his influence on them? Now, for the update. So after the whole marker incident and the horrible things my husband said about my dad, things just spiraled. I had asked my parents to watch the kids for the night because I needed some space to think. They didn't ask too many questions, just gave me a hug and took the kids. I think they knew something was up. That evening, my husband came to talk. He started off with an apology, but it felt hollow. He said he was stressed and didn't mean what he said about my dad. But then he tried to turn it around on me, saying I was too demanding and that I didn't appreciate him. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, trying to keep our family together, and he was playing the victim. I reminded him of the time when we first met, how he was always so attentive and caring. I couldn't understand how we got from there to here. He used to surprise me with little notes and help out without being asked. But over the years, that man seemed to disappear, and this angry, resentful person took his place. The next day, I found out that he had actually gone through with his threat about our savings. He didn't buy something extravagant, but he did pull out a chunk of money. I was furious. It was like he was trying to punish me for standing up to him. I called my best friend, who's been with me through thick and thin since middle school, and she was livid. She reminded me of all the times she'd seen him dismiss me or make snide comments. She said she'd been biting her tongue for years, hoping I'd see it for myself. I decided to take action. I went to the bank and made sure he couldn't access the rest of our savings without my permission. The bank manager was surprisingly understanding. He even shared a story about his sister going through something similar. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone. When my husband found out, he was enraged. He accused me of trying to control him and said I was the one being hurtful. I couldn't even process his words. It was like he was living in a different reality. Then, 2 days ago, I got a call from my mom. She was in tears. My dad had been in a minor car accident. He was okay, thank God, but the shock of it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like my husband's cruel words had somehow put that energy out into the universe. I rushed to be with my parents, leaving my husband at home. At the hospital, my dad kept apologizing for the accident, saying he should have been more careful. It broke my heart. He's always been the one to take care of everyone else, and here he was, thinking he'd let us down. I reassured him it wasn't his fault, and that the most important thing was that he was safe. That night, my husband tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I stayed with my parents, helping to take care of my dad. It was during those quiet moments, sitting with my dad, that I realized I couldn't go back to the way things were. My husband's words had been a wake-up call. Yesterday, I went home while my husband was at work. I packed a bag for me and the kids. I also took some time to gather important documents and a few sentimental items. It was heart-wrenching to walk through our home, knowing it wouldn't be mine much longer. When my husband came home and found us gone, he blew up my phone with calls and texts. Some were apologetic, others were angry. But I didn't respond. I was done. I had made arrangements to stay with my parents for the time being. They were more than happy to have us, and the kids were just glad to be with their grandparents. Today, I met with a lawyer to discuss my options. It was empowering to take control of my life again. The lawyer was kind and patient, explaining everything clearly. She told me that I was doing the right thing and that she'd be there every step of the way. As for my husband, well, he's been trying to reach out to my parents now, probably to try and get them on his side. But my dad, even in his recovery, was firm. He told my husband that he had crossed a line and that he needed to reflect on his actions. Boyfriend asks me to find him a dentist while I'm visiting my family, and then he calls me self-centered. Oh boy, he's in for a surprise. At this point, I'm wondering if this can even be fixed. We've been together for 6 years with these types of issues, for a lot of them, but they appear to be getting worse. For the holidays, I flew to see my family for 5 days. He can't come because for 3 of those days, it was going to be just me and my sisters, who I haven't seen in a year. But honestly, it shouldn't be a big deal. He's gone away by himself for the holidays before. Everything was great between us, but while I was waiting at the airport to fly out, he texted with his request. He said he was in pain and needed to get in to see a dentist that day. I said I'd try, but I wouldn't have Wi-Fi on the 5-hour flight and Googled 2 numbers near him and suggested he call when they opened. Once I landed, etc., My sister picked me up and we spent the next 2 hours straight talking. By then, any dentist would have been closed. And truthfully, I kind of had forgotten. I assumed he would have called dentists and gotten himself an appointment. He texted me saying, any luck? Me, no. Didn't you get in to see one? No. Did you even try? I can try tomorrow morning. So you didn't even try to help me when I asked, and you didn't even bother to tell me you weren't helping me. I then said that I was indisposed most of the day and that he could make an appointment for himself much easier than I could on a travel day. He said he was in too much pain to make an appointment. I honestly doubt that for many reasons and proceeded to become very angry, calling me self-centered, selfish, etc., saying if we can't count on each other, what is the point of even being in a relationship? For the record, it's not like he ever does anything like this for me, nor do I even ask him to. He continued to insult me, saying that I think I'm fiercely independent. I've never described myself like that, and that he thinks people who feel that way will die alone. I admittedly started getting angry at him as well because he has a strong tendency to do things like this when I'm busy. It ended up being a very nasty texting argument that put a damper on my time with my family. When I tell him that I feel he's doing this because he doesn't like when my attention is off him, he says, "No way, that's not true," and tells me I'm self-centered and gaslighting him. From my perspective, he keeps inventing crisis situations that aren't actually a big deal and causes a lot of weird chaos. I do want to be with him, but I don't want these issues all the time. A couple of years ago, it was pretty bad, and I insisted he get a therapist. He then told me his therapist said I'm no good for him, but he wants to be with me anyway because he's in love with me. How on earth do I deal with this? I want for us to be healthy, with normal communication. It feels like this is very abnormal, but when I point it out, he just tells me that I don't accept responsibility for my part in the conflicts. But that's because I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. Are we just doomed? Should we try couples counseling? At this point, I'm truly confused. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your boyfriend is 32, not 16-year-old. He can use Google and call a dentist for himself. He had no issues texting you. At this point, he's behaving like he's dependent on you, like a child would be. That's not a healthy relationship dynamic. I could understand if he made the request if you were home, not traveling, and if his mouth was too swollen to speak. But this is ridiculous. You are not his mommy. He can make his own appointments. I'd be damned if I have to do this for a grown man. I'd lose all attraction towards him. If he does this frequently, deal breaker. There are millions of men out there. He's not the last one on the planet. If he doesn't want to act right, there are tons out there that will. Comment 2. It's bizarre he would even ask you to do this in the first place, let alone on a day when you are flying. Are his hands broken? How about his brain? Because it sure seems like it. This sort of request is beyond out of line. You need to shut this down. Next time he has this faux emergency, tell him, I'm busy. I cannot sort this out. You are going to need to figure it out for yourself. Like an adult. Then disengage and let him throw a tantrum. I honestly don't see much hope here, and I do not believe for 1 second that is what the therapist actually said. I think he's a liar and full of shoot. Now for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update on the whole dentist drama with my boyfriend. It's been a week since I last posted, and let me tell you, things have been intense. So, after the whole argument about him needing a dentist and me being with my family, I thought things would cool down. But nope. The day after the fight, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls from him. I called back, worried something serious had happened. He answered, and his voice was all muffled. Turns out he had tried to pull his own tooth out because the pain was so bad. I was shocked. I mean, who does that? I felt guilty, so I spent the morning calling around, and I finally found a dentist who could see him that day. I gave him the details, and he went. Later, he texted me saying the dentist had to do an emergency extraction because the tooth was so bad. He also said he was sorry for lashing out at me and that the pain had made him act crazy. I wanted to believe him, but I remembered how, 2 years ago, he had a similar emergency when I was at a job interview. He had claimed he fell down the stairs and needed me to come home immediately. I rushed back, only to find him chilling on the couch watching TV. He said he just missed me and wanted me to come back. That should have been a red flag, right? Anyway, back to the present. I flew back home after my trip, and things were okay for a couple of days. We even had a nice dinner, and he was all sweet, saying how he realized he needed to handle things better. But then, 2 days ago, I got a text from my sister saying she saw pictures on social media of my boyfriend out partying the night he was supposedly in so much pain. I confronted him about it, and he got defensive, saying it was after the dentist and he needed to de-stress. But the timestamps on the photos were from before his appointment. I was furious. It was like he was living a double life or something. We had a huge fight. I told him I couldn't trust him anymore, and he accused me of spying on him and not understanding his pain. He even brought up how I had trust issues because of my ex, who cheated on me. That was a low blow, and it hurt because I had confided in him about how hard that experience was for me. In the middle of our argument, his phone rang. It was his mom. She was calling to check on him because apparently he had told her he was having surgery that day. What? I was standing right there, and he was clearly not having surgery. He tried to play it off, saying it was a misunderstanding, but I wasn't buying it. I decided I needed some space to think, so I went to stay with a friend for a few days. My boyfriend has been texting me nonstop, apologizing and saying he'll do anything to make it right. He even suggested couples counseling again, which we had tried once before when he got jealous of the time I was spending with my coworkers on a big project. I'm just so confused. I love him, but I don't know if I can get past this. It's like he creates these situations to test me or get my attention. It's exhausting. So, that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Do I give him another chance, or is this just going to keep happening? It's like every time I think we're moving forward, something else pops up. I told my brother I won't go to our annual family vacation at the lake house because I hate kids, and he tries to convince our parents to favor his family in their will. Oh boy, I regret it so much. This story involves my parents in their 60s, my wife and I in our 30s, and my brother's family in their 30s, a 2-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy. A little over 2 years ago, before my brother had kids, my parents resurrected the idea of whole family vacations. We hadn't done it in a while because of starting careers, conflicting schedules, etc., and it went really well. So well that my parents decided to straight up buy a lake house, both for their own enjoyment and as a place for this kind of event. My brother lives pretty far away while I live very close to them, and my wife and I both put in a good amount of time and effort getting the house all set up and ready to go. We have also spent plenty of weekends there with my parents. So last year, it was time to have the week-long family vacation, and unfortunately, it just was not a good time. I love my brother and his family very much, but my wife and I are just really not interested in children at all. On the flip side, my brother and his wife love their children more than life itself and spend every waking moment they aren't at work interacting with them. Some of the things that bothered us about the vacation with them were their child is not allowed to watch TV, but they want her to play in the main TV room. The TV was not allowed to be on while the child was awake. Their bedroom shares a wall with the TV room, so when the child is asleep, we must be quiet and keep the TV volume at a whisper level. They could be in a bedroom away from the TV to mitigate this, but that one doesn't have an attached bathroom, so that's what I get. My sister-in-law is breastfeeding/pumping, which must be done quite often, like every 2 hours, apparently. But we don't want to exclude her, so any boat excursions we do are very limited, which really unalives the lake vibe for me. It probably takes 30 minutes for them to get ready, 30 minutes to drive to a cove and anchor, drink a beer, and then start packing up to drive back to the dock. My brother and sister-in-law don't drink. When they are around, neither do my parents. This is allegedly a vacation, and I'd rather lean towards mimosas every morning and party on the pontoon. With no TV and limited lake access, everyone spends 100% of their time just watching the kids play on the floor in the living room. I don't enjoy this at all. Their child is scared and allergic to my very friendly miniature dog, who is smaller than the child. Doggo doesn't understand why nobody wants him around when usually my parents love him. So now it's already been brought up about this year. And I said I didn't have a good time last year and I'm not coming this year. I'll go with just my parents. But I think it should just be the four of them without me for the week, so they can cater specifically to just my brother. I could tell this was the wrong answer. I don't mean anyone any harm, but if I wanted kids, I would have some. I want my vacation to be about me and what I want. I'm having trouble with communicating that in an inoffensive way. What do you think I should do? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Respectfully, the kids won't be that little for long. They are very high needs right now, but in a few years, after everyone can wipe their own butt, things will be a lot more flexible again. I'd come visit for a night or two only while in this phase. In the meantime, the brother and his wife need to chill the frick out about the TV not being on around the kid. But then again, you aren't on vacation to watch TV. Letting their parenting preference, not need, like a nap schedule is a need, dictate everyone else's activities needs to be a no-go. The kid can go play in the bedroom if you want to kick back and watch a show, or they can deal with the unbelievable damage of exposing their child to a few hours of TV once a year. That's a fair compromise. If nobody is willing to compromise, then the price is your lack of presence. Put your foot down now before the restrictions spiral and grow. Let it be known that reasonable requirements will be met, but unreasonable preferences will have to be navigated around on their part. And remember, this stage of parenting doesn't last forever. Comment 2. If you live so close, why not just join them for a weekend? I actually have kids, but they are not babies, toddlers anymore, so I wouldn't have a whole lot of fun catering to babies for a whole week either. I think you should chill the "we don't enjoy children" thing, though. These kids are your family members, and when they are older, they can be a lot of fun. I am at the age where many of my nieces' nephews are adults, and we have very close relationships with some of them, better than some sibling relationships. Put in some time. It just doesn't need to be a full week right now. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the advice and support on my last post. It's been a month since I shared my family vacation woes, and boy, do I have an update for you. So after I told my parents I wasn't interested in the family vacation this year, things got tense. My mom, who's always been the peacemaker, tried to smooth things over. She suggested a compromise where we'd split the week, half the time for kid-friendly activities and the other half for adult relaxation. I thought it was a fair plan, but my brother, well, he didn't take it well. Turns out, my brother had been harboring some resentment towards me for a while. He felt that I was getting special treatment because I lived closer to our parents. He accused me of influencing them to buy the lake house just so my wife and I could have a free vacation spot. I was shocked. We had all enjoyed those vacations as kids, and the lake house was supposed to be for everyone. But here's where the betrayal comes in. My brother had been secretly talking to my parents behind my back, trying to convince them to rewrite their will to favor his family because they had kids. He argued that since my wife and I were child-free, we wouldn't need the inheritance as much. My parents were torn, but they hadn't made any decisions yet. When I found out, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own brother, who I'd always been close to, was trying to cut me out. I confronted him about it, and it turned into a huge fight. Voices were raised, and some pretty hurtful things were said. My sister-in-law tried to mediate, but it was no use. The tension spilled over into the rest of the family. My wife, who had been nothing but supportive and helpful with the lake house, felt betrayed too. She had grown to love that place as much as I did, and now it felt tainted. My parents were caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace between their sons. In the midst of all this, my wife and I decided to take a weekend at the lake house to clear our heads. We needed some time away from the drama, but when we got there, we found my brother's family already staying there. They hadn't told anyone they were coming. It was awkward, to say the least. We tried to coexist peacefully for the weekend, but it was clear that the dynamic had changed. My niece and nephew, who I do love despite not wanting kids of my own, could sense the tension. They clung to their parents, and my dog, who was usually the star of the show, was kept at a distance because of my niece's allergies. The final straw came when my brother and I had another argument, this time about the boat. He wanted to take it out, but he didn't want any alcohol on board. I reminded him that it was also my parents' boat, and we should be able to enjoy it as we liked. He accused me of being selfish and not thinking about his kids' safety. That night, my wife and I packed up and left early. We needed space from the whole situation. On the drive home, we talked about everything: the betrayal, the will, the lake house. It was a lot to process. The next day, my parents called. They were upset about how everything had unfolded. They didn't want the lake house to be a source of conflict. They proposed a new idea, setting up a schedule for when each family could use the house to avoid any overlap. It wasn't ideal, but it was a start. As for the will, my parents assured me that they would be fair to both families. They didn't want money or property to tear us apart. I appreciated their words, but the trust between my brother and me was damaged. It's been a rough month, and I'm still trying to figure out how to move forward with my brother. We haven't spoken much since the weekend at the lake house. I hope we can repair our relationship, but it's going to take time. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.